He weighed nearly 800 pounds.
Food made me feel accepted. Food made me feel good. It made me feel like everything else didn't matter. Felt like it loved me.
Until he surrendered his identity.
I had a reverence, a fear of the Lord, because he created my body. He made it.
Find out how he lost nearly 600 pounds. Plus, she's the widow of the American sniper, Chris Kyle. Taya Kyle is here to discuss how she overcomes grief and her plan to help others find purpose and passion on today's 700 Club Interactive. Well, welcome to the show. The Charlotte Hornets' James Borrego is the first Hispanic head coach in the NBA's 72-year history, and he was hired by one of his childhood idols.
That childhood idol? Well, none other than team owner Michael Jordan. Recently, the coach sat down with our sports reporter Tom Beering to talk about what it's like to work for one of basketball's all-time greatest players.
In a game of rebounds, James Borrego has the knack for bouncing back. His resiliency and persistence turned heads. After long success and 2 championships as a San Antonio Spurs assistant, the Charlotte Hornets hired him, and he became the NBA's first Hispanic head coach. But the 3-time head coaching finalist had to wait his turn.
When was the wait most difficult?
Believing I was the next guy, being turned down. Finalists again, 2 jobs, 2 no's. But I kept being persistent, finding resilience to keep moving forward. Being an NBA assistant coach for 15, 16 years, the wait was long, but I knew if I continued to put my work in, that opportunity would come again, and I'm thankful for it.
How do you fuel your disappointment rather than resenting it?
Well, I think you look at it as an opportunity. Through disappointments in life, that's on the court, in practice, in games, as long as you're learning from it, I think you get better along the way. I found a spirit of resiliency reflected in my mother, that she could get up and she could keep going through the ups, through the downs of life. And I was given that gift at an early age of moving forward and seeing that example.
Well, an owner is an owner unless you're wearing it, right? So you come here under the evaluation of Hornets owner Michael Jordan. So what made that memorable for you?
First of all, never met him. Obviously one of the greatest players of all time, someone I grew up watching, admiring from afar. To walk in his home and be interviewed and spend time with him was surreal for me. Someone that knows basketball at extremely high level. He was interested in me, to hear my vision, what I could help bring his company, his organization. It was a wonderful conversation of basketball, life, moving this team forward. And we spent a lot of time watching a basketball game, talking X's and O's. But he's been a wonderful owner, someone that brings great value, someone who I trust, and someone who I know believes in me and this entire group.
Was there a favorite question he asked?
Who did you grow up rooting for? No.
Your mandate was Bulls?
Bulls all the way. He didn't know I was really a Laker fan, but.
Talent aside, what's at the core of a champion?
There's a lot there. It's effort. It's effort in your consistency, effort in your discipline, effort to stay resilient. If you have those 3 things, you got a shot. People look at NBA champions and they think it just happens because of talent or coaching or you add this player or that. You have to put the time in. You have to put the effort in every day. And that's a challenge.
What is it about JB that makes him unique as a coach?
No, first of all, he's a great guy. Well, he's helping me think a lot about the game and about different situations and things of that nature. So I think that's what's different about him. He's really open-minded.
We had a great relationship because he's been with me 10 years in San Antonio, and we trust each other. So when he asked me to come here and help him out, I was just happy about the opportunity, and I knew that I can trust him.
Today's NBA player, they're getting younger, they're global. What is a must-have to earn their trust?
They are getting global. It's becoming more and more of a challenge. You have to be authentic. Players today, they'll see right through you, and you won't earn their trust. And I think that's what Christ is looking for in us, to be authentic and real. And that's really what elevates an organization, when there's real, authentic connection and relationship. And I think that's what players are looking for.
What has multicultural friendships, teaming taught you?
Growing up in New Mexico, Hispanic background, it's about family, that we pull for each other, we're there for each other, just as the church should be. There's room to disagree, no matter if I'm Hispanic, white, black, Asian, we're just a family. And I think that's what Christ would want us to represent and to be about. That's something I value at my core and something that I want to be known for long term.
You're doing your doctorate now, but you have your master's in leadership. What do you think is most undervalued when it comes to moving people forward?
One of the things I've learned over the years watching great leaders and studying leadership is listening to people, understanding people, empathizing with people. You can help move them forward, but you got to understand people and where they're at to do that. Sometimes it's a little messy, and I think it's about listening. When you listen to them, you value them, and when people feel valued, they'll keep coming back to you.
So you were brought in to help change, redefine the culture of this organization. But over your broad experience with coaching, what about the pushback that comes from leadership at times where it's like, we don't want to change? What's your advice?
Get over yourself. We're not in it for the ego. I'm not standing up on a perch thinking I got everything figured out, but stepping in the muck, in the fire, in the arena, put ourselves in the battlefield together. Pull out the best in people, see what they do well, and maximize it. The good leaders I've been around, they go tap into that.
Coach up the church, evaluate their mission, their game plan. What would your encouragement be to them to finish strong?
Probably tell them something I tell my players often as they exit a huddle, exit a halftime. Stay the course, stay together. This is a long game. This is a long season. We need each other. Stay together, stay the course, keep pulling, and ultimately communicate. Talking, but it's also listening.
What do you borrow from Christ's example when leading and coaching a team?
I think of two things, sacrifice and resiliency. He was the ultimate example of that, the ultimate sacrifice for us. Never giving in, always getting back up, always being there. Just realizing you can't do it on your own, that you need a partner. And he's the ultimate partner.
He is the ultimate partner, but you can pick up a lot of wisdom just from James in that little short piece. And the biggest one is don't look at failures as anything other than opportunities. If you're disappointed, if you're not getting what you think, well then, okay, where's the opportunity here? What a great piece of wisdom.
It takes it all to make it work, right? Well, up next, she's the wife to the late Chris Kyle, better known as the American Sniper. Taya Kyle is here to tell us how she's continuing her husband's legacy right after this. How do you deal with grief? The Bible tells us that God comforts us in our sorrows so that we're better prepared to comfort others. Well, sometimes hearing stories of triumph encourages those of us who are dealing with life's trials. Taya Kyle has experienced despair. Now she's helping others, one life at a time. Take a look.
Taya Kyle is a New York Times best-selling author and the widow of American sniper Chris Kyle. Chris and his friend Chad Littlefield were cruelly murdered by a man they were trying to help. In Chris's honor, Taya has founded the Chris Kyle Frog Foundation, which focuses on strengthening the marriages of military spouses and first responders. After her husband's death, people shared their own stories of tragedy and triumph with Taya. She highlighted over 30 of them in her book, American Spirit.
Taya Kyle joins us now. Welcome. It's so nice to have you with us.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
You've called the American Spirit a love letter to the country. What do you mean by that, Taya?
You know, I just think it's when you see someone hurting or angry and you think there's more to them and you try to reach their soul and get past the anger. And I feel like that's where we are in this country. It feels very divisive and polarized. And I see this country as still having a soul. And I think that's the healing process. We need to get to the soul. And remember that just because we hear loud extremes, that's not the majority of what's happening in this country. The majority of what's happening is people loving each other and lifting each other up without any knowledge of the other person's politics.
Well, and sometimes, you know, that spirit can spread like wildfire.
Yes.
And we all need to learn to take 3 deep breaths, think a little bit while we're doing that, and then come at it from a different perspective. You talk about the pioneering spirit that built America. And I mean, our country is really founded on that and great because of that. Discuss that a little bit.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I know a lot of times people get frustrated if we talk about the founding fathers, and there's a mix of what they wanted, which was border control and currency, railroads, and that's about it, right? The federal government was designed to not do much, and I think that was brilliant there because it allowed people to help each other out. But, aside from that, we had this spirit of helping one another get across the mountain passes. And, if they were sick, you helped your neighbor. Who else was there, right? And the blessing was that people figured out the kind of grit they had. They figured out what it took and what the purpose was kind of in the pain when they came together. And I think that part of our spirit's alive and well.
Well, and there is a big core of your book is about the fact that there is purpose in pain.
Really, yeah.
That's sometimes when you're going through it, as I'm sure you found yourself, very difficult to see or even to hang on to.
Right.
How did you get to that place?
Well, it's interesting because I find that sometimes it feels impossible, right, when you're going through it. And I think the more perspective you have, the more experience you have getting through things, the more you start to see the beauty in it and you have faith that it's okay. So I definitely see the wisdom in God's plan, because I think it's sort of like if you knew your child was going to have an amputation, you would prepare them ahead of time, and then you would be with them there and you would take care of them afterward. And I see that as what God did with me. I was prepared in little bits before the amputation, the having, Chris's life taken.
Just jerked out of you.
Right. And there were ways that I see he prepared me to be able to withstand that and put people in place to help me. But there's a story in here, can I take a minute and tell you about this? There's a story in here that I kind of had a moment where I felt God in the green room back there kind of saying, talk about this one. Solutions for Change, I haven't talked about it on any other show. But, Chris Megason, his story is amazing. He starts out as a Marine who loses a volunteer contest, right? Now, just little things add up. You think, oh, that's too bad. You didn't get what you wanted. That puts him into a place where he had to volunteer. Where he volunteers, he sees a guy who has fought drug addiction and, is miserable and death of loved ones, and he's hurting and he's in this homeless shelter and he doesn't talk to anybody. That pain is used for good, right? So the two of them meet and then they connect, and then that puts Chris on this different path where now he not only helps people, but he does the whole biblical thing of teaching a man to fish, right? Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is the guy who's fought all these addictions and had all this trouble and is homeless, he doesn't want, he appreciates the fact that he has food and money, but he doesn't want just that, right? He wants his life back. He wants somebody to see him as a person. And so Chris goes and creates a 2.5-year program for people. There's a story in there of how it happens, but where people actually change their lives for the better. So I take that and I think one little thing at a time that we would see as horrible actually ended up being the most amazing blessing for all of these families who now have a totally different trajectory.
Yeah, that wouldn't have happened had he gotten what he wanted in the first place.
That's exactly right.
It's a Romans 8:28 moment. God takes sometimes what the enemy has planned for you that's not good and turns it into something that's a blessing for many.
I think he does that every time. We just have to be wise enough to see it, and we have to be open enough and not have fear rule our lives. And sometimes my life has been a journey of turning fear into faith. I was very afraid of a lot of things, and the longer I live, I see if God can get me through the worst, he can get me through the littlest. And at one point I would have thought he wouldn't care about the little things. And I think the beauty of this book and why I had to share the story is he does care about the little things. Like, how magnificent is God that he can care about the little things in all of our lives? That is mind-blowing.
Speaking of caring about little things, how have you helped your children through all of this?
It's fascinating to me too. That's another part of my learning experience with God is I see that people say kids are resilient, but what I see is their souls have been changed in a way that is positive. And that should not have happened, right? Because my biggest fear was telling my kids that their father had died. And then when I actually had to do it, it was one of the worst things I've ever done in my life. He was an amazing father. And then I look at it and see they are soulful, faithful, they're strong. They have a different perspective. You want to talk about a bad day? I remember my daughter telling me at one point, Mama, sometimes I would have thought of this as a bad day, but my dad didn't die today, so really.
Yeah.
And it kind of took my breath away. Yeah, and I thought that's a lot for a little person. And she was very young at the time. And I just see them as so much smarter and stronger and more compassionate.
And I was going to say smarter and stronger and yet gentler in a way, more compassionate, as you said.
They really are. They look out for other people, and they don't sit in their grief. I think that's the other thing. You think at some point that when something like that is taken from them, I wondered, would their foundation ever be okay? And I've had other men in their lives who are strong, married Christian men who cared enough about our family to care for my children, right? They've had people step in every way. So without being married again, you always wonder, will my kids have an understanding of what a healthy home looks like? And they do, because they have friends who have healthy marriages and homes, and they get it.
And isn't that really the message of your book? That all around us, life is happening, and we need to step in. We need to step into the moment. We need to step up to the plate. We need to be the one.
Right. And with that, I would suggest this to you too, is that I remember thinking I'd hear those things and I'd think, there's no way. I'm a mom. Like, I would love to change the world. I can't do that, right? And I think that the power in this book is you see that it's actually the small things you do, and it multiplies.
People.
Yes. And just taking really good care of your kids and giving them that foundation ripples out more than any work you could do if you were showing up, at even a nonprofit every day.
It's a great legacy, what you leave with your children. Well, the book is called American Spirit. It's available wherever books are sold. It's a wonderful read. It's a wonderful inspiration and encouragement. Thank you, Taya. It's great to see you again.
Good to see you.
Gordon?
Up next, he was a second grader who weighed 200 pounds. Over time, that number nearly quadrupled.
They would say things like, well, you're fat, you're ugly, you waddle. That stuff would make me want to go to food because it just made me feel good.
Hear how he experienced a total transformation after this. Justin Willoughby walked into the doctor's office for a routine checkup. He left in an ambulance. That's because Justin weighed 799 pounds. At the hospital, he knew he needed to lose weight, and he needed to change more than just his diet.
Yeah, when people see pictures of me when I was younger, and they look back at those pictures, they really can't believe that's who they're looking at, that it's me.
From an early age, Justin Willoughby had a passion for food.
Food was like my best friend. It would comfort me, it would bring me pleasure, and it took away the anxiety, it took away all my emotions for a moment, it numbed me, if you will. Hitting second grade, I was around 200 pounds. Going through middle school, I probably hit around 350, 400, 450.
As his weight climbed, the attacks from classmates increased.
They would say things like, well, you're fat, you're ugly, you waddle, just a bunch of vulgar names. And then that stuff would make me want to go to food. I got a lot of pleasure from it, a lot of acceptance, because it just made me feel good. My panic attack started at 14 years old. The doctors put me on medication. The medications help in a temporary sense to where, they make me feel a little numb and kind of tired.
Justin grew more sedentary and his weight increased, but nothing freed him from his depression and fear. Around this time, a friend of his mom, a woman named Marge, started talking to Justin about Jesus.
She talked to me about how God can help me through the anxiety attacks and such, and that he wouldn't leave me or forsake me, that he was with me always. To know that somebody can love you that much, and to know that I can be forgiven of the wrongs that I've done, the things I'm not okay with, the things that would haunt me day and night, like why did I make this decision? Stuff like that, it attracted me.
But Justin wasn't willing to surrender his food addiction.
Food made me feel accepted. Food made me feel good. Food, it made me feel like everything else didn't matter. Felt like it loved me, even though it didn't. But it made me feel satisfied and fulfilled. It was this condition I guess I had that I didn't want to give up. So yeah, there was this battle going on.
When he was 16, Justin went to a doctor for an insurance physical.
And the doctor looked at me and he was stunned. He looked me over, he checked me over, and he was really anxious. He was really unsure if I was healthy and if I was okay.
He was sent by ambulance to a hospital in Pittsburgh for more testing. There, the seriousness of his morbid obesity became real.
I remember my parents being at the foot of the bed, and they looked at the bed scale. My mom walks up to me and she says, "Honey, do you know how much you weigh?" And I said, "No, I don't." And she goes, "You weigh 799 pounds. And I was blown away and numb at the same time. And I thought things like, who could love me? I'm so large. Who would love me? I don't offer much. I just sit here and I eat. And those are real thoughts that entered my mind, for sure. And those thoughts plagued me. I guess I felt like I was in a prison at that moment, just not knowing where to turn next.
Lying in his bed, Justin remembered what his mom's friend Marge told him about Jesus' love, and he cried out to God for help.
When I gave my heart to Jesus and surrendered over, there was a peace. I felt loved and I felt valuable. I felt like even if I was that much weight and wasn't confident and happy about myself, I felt like the Lord saw something different. Like he saw my identity as his child, and I allowed God to take a messed up, broken person that I was, and I allowed him to change me from the inside out. I gave my heart to Jesus in August 2003. And I realized that I was loved by him and that he cared about me, and I had value and identity.
With a new identity, Justin started functioning differently. He was motivated to eat better and started moving.
I would have to start walking a little bit. So I remember taking a couple steps, maybe 3, 4, 5 steps, and then I would have to go back to the bed and sit down. But that was a milestone for me because I was able to actually move. I was able to actually function.
He was discharged after 6 days. Once at home, Justin started working with a therapist and a nurse to continue building his strength. It took him 33 days to walk a total of 1 mile.
And then I started walking a little bit easier. It took me less days, 20-some days a second time. I did another mile. And then less time, I'd do my next mile. And eventually I started walking around stores and going out and actually becoming part of society again.
The first year, Justin dropped 200 pounds through dietary changes and exercise. The second year, he dropped another 200. He learned to rely on God anytime he felt like giving in to his food addiction.
The closer I got to God, the closer I grew my relationship with Jesus, I do believe my body got healthier. It's because I had a reverence, a fear of the Lord, because he created my body. He made it. He created it in such a way to where it is a temple. You know, he lives in it. If God comes to live in you, if he dwells in your body, if he dwells in a temple, don't you think that temple should be taken care of?
Today, over 10 years later, Justin remains addiction and panic attack free. He is married and has shared his transformative story on radio, TV, and church meetings. As a weight loss coach and motivational speaker, Justin enjoys pointing others to the life-changing power of Jesus.
God made you you, and he wants you to be the best version of you. And that only comes from surrendering your life over to him and allowing him to shape you and who he wants you to be.
What he's done for others, he will do for you. What Justin said is a great key. When he was talking about food, it made me feel like it loved me. It made me feel that way, even though it didn't. And even though food was killing him, that act, that eating of it, made him feel like he was loved. I think that's the key to all addiction and all compulsive behavior, and you find it in Hosea, where God talks about idolatry. He talks about harlotry, and then he says new wine. What they do is they enslave the heart. And when you understand that your heart's enslaved to it, it makes you feel like you're loved, even though it's killing you. This applies to anything. And whether you talk about fame or internet addiction or video game addiction or alcoholism or drug addiction or food addiction, what it means is your heart is enslaved and you're doing things that on a repeated pattern are actually destroying you. But I've got great news for you. You can take that love and replace it for something real. And that is the love that God has for you, the dignity that that love gives you, and then the confidence moving forward that you're changed from your innermost being, that what you used to love to do that destroyed you can now be changed into love for the one who loves you infinitely and wants you to be with him for all eternity. If you want to experience this, give us a call. All you have to do is say, I need to find Jesus today. I need to know that I'm loved. I need to know that I'm forgiven. I need to know that I'm going to be cared for the rest of my life and then for all eternity. We're here for you. We're not here to judge you. We're here to set you free and let you know that God loves you. Call us, 1-800-700-7000. Here's a word from Psalms. And those who know your name will put their trust in you. For you, Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you. God bless.